What's up, everyone? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin.
And we are back with something we haven't done in a while, a retro review. So we were kind of digging around the catacombs of all sorts of interesting sort of one-off albums, and I came across one that I've been meaning to do for a while. And, well, it's partially due to the fact that it has a very interesting twist of a story at the end, but it's also due to the fact that it's a pretty solid slab of underground old school death metal from the 90s. So we are going to go over Desecrator's Subconscious release. This came out on the 28th of January in 1991, so we are approaching its 31-year-old birthday on RKT Records. Now, this band formed in 1989 in England. Again, lone full length. They had two other demos, and we'll get into that. This band was formed by brothers Steve and Mike Ford. Steve was on guitars, and Mike was on bass and vocals. And with their drummer, Lee Hawk, they pretty much kind of just got to work in the UK underground. I mean, at this point, you know, Bolt Thrower was very well established.
Yep.
Carcass had pretty much become like more of a death metal act, Napalm Death, and of course Benediction in there too, because those guys were pretty much death metal from day one. They didn't start off as a grindcore act. So they got to work and released a demo in 1990, which was simply called their 1990 demo. It consisted of one track, Repressive Acceptance, which that one track was almost 8 minutes long, and that was enough for them to get signed to RKT Records, which honestly, that's the first I think I've heard of this label, and got to work on their full length. Now, they got in the studio in January of 1991, so I'm not entirely sure what the date was, but that still leaves a maximum of 28 days before it was released. So this might have been kind of a rush job, and
maybe
listening to this, you kind of get that impression. The opening track, Subconscious Release, starts off with some very creepy sound effects, some droning bass, and what sounds like a dying
Muppet.
Yeah, or a manatee at the bottom of a well. You know what? Don't rescue that one. I think there's something really fucking wrong with it.
He's not well. He's unwell.
But this launches into some grimy old school death metal. If you love D-beat driven death metal and you love Leprosy,
then you're going to love this entire album.
Yes. Pretty much just kicks off of that, and you kind of get a feel for the production right away. It's a bit muddy. And again, kind of a short window to record and mix this and master it, maybe kinda.
That term is used loosely. Let's be honest here.
The bass is up really high in the mix, and the tone is most of the time good. Sometimes there's some question marks there.
It's like, it'd be like if you were to pluck strings inside of a thermos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which isn't what you want.
No. The drums, well, I think the snare sounds good, and the snare kind of reminds me of the sound on Leprosy, because Leprosy has notoriously loud drums, though I fucking love that album. This has that snare, then the rest of the drums, okay. The bass drum I kind of have an issue with because it sounds like the fucking bass drums were full of packing peanuts.
Yeah.
And they just kind of muffled it, and it's kind of a lackluster thud.
Well, but they submerged the mic inside those packing peanuts, and instead of like back by the resonant head where it should be, it was up against the actual kick drum head.
Yeah.
It's rough.
It's rough. And the guitar tone, while muddy and murky, is actually kind of appropriate for the sound, because I think a lot of this was heavily influenced not only by the English bands, but also US bands. Of course, Death, we already brought that up, but I definitely hear a lot of Autopsy.
And Obituary.
Definitely some Obituary level groove on there. Autopsy definitely comes through on the vocals. The vocals kind of have that Chris Reifert sort of flair for the dramatic, and just like, let's just gurgle this extra long. And, well, you kind of couple that with, again, a lot of D-beat drums. That's pretty fucking Autopsy right there. And the vocals are extraordinarily out front in the mix, too. Which, again, there's a lot of mixing issues on here, and that is going to get brought up quite a bit because sometimes it varies from song to song. The mix is inconsistent.
I mean, the mix, I'm guessing, was done in like 3 or 4 days, maybe. When you go into a studio and record and then release it less than a month later, you can't spend too much time
I think they had time to talk to Dan Seagrave to do the album art, which the album art's fucking fantastic, kind of back in his biomechanical days, and get in there, run through some shit, and literally there is some stuff on here where it sounds like there were mistakes made. Ineffectual Condition, when it starts off, there's a snare miss. Yes. And you hear it. Yes. And they just kind of power through. There wasn't another take on there. Maybe, studio time is expensive. It sounds like they cut it right there. Yeah. They just cut it and then restarted it. But that cut is not clean. No. There's no fade in. It's obvious because the volume on where it comes back in is louder than it was before it went out. Yeah. But musically, again, very thrashy riffs. Mm-hmm. Like these riffs kind of hark back to, again, that sort of like, early death metal, like, 1989, like maybe even back as far as Possessed too. And these songs are long. Like a lot of these songs, the opening track, title track, is over 8 minutes long, and then there are also 3 tracks on here that are over 7 minutes long. And some of it you can justify. Some of it just feels like, hey, we're repeating a lot of these same really cool riffs that you like, except they're gonna maybe wear on you after a while because there's not a lot of variation. Repressive Acceptance is definitely an example of a longer song with a lot of cool dynamics. Yes. In fact, the song, there's a lot of parts in it that remind me of Pull the Plug. The way it starts with the opening tremolo into that D beat, it's almost like, right when you get to that fucking D beat section, that fucking nasty riff on Pull the Plug before they get to the chorus. It's close. Yeah. But this song shows off a lot of songwriting dynamics within it. Like, there's not a lot of just like repeating the same riff. There's cool sections that don't repeat. Yep. There's even some really cool isolated, like, solo sections, which leads aren't big on here. And it's not just, this song is not just D beat and machine gun guitars. The breakdown is super cool. It focuses more on like groove and hooks. Yeah, and the breakdown on Ineffectual Condition is absolutely monstrous. But there was an issue with it. And this is kind of a thing about maybe a young band trying to do too much, because this is just kind of the start of it. This breakdown starts off awesome. Yep. At this point, you're kind of hungering for a big groovy section because you've been D-beated to death. Not that that's a bad thing, because D-beats are fun, but with 8-minute songs of D-beats, the mosh pit's going to get fucking exhausted. All the middle-aged dudes are going to be like, hey, dude, come on, let's get it spinning. Like, are you fucking kidding? My knees, dude. I'm done. I'm done. But this breakdown, while it starts off awesome, there's a giant growl that comes in. It's like, ooh, cool. All right, one cool accented growl. There's a lot of reverb on it and a bit of delay. Sounds great. Then he does it again. And again. And again. And again. And maybe again. Like, it becomes sort of a thing there where the vocals are very loud in the mix, and they kind of, drown out the really muffled guitars and spots. And it's like, man, I need that chug to hear it, and you're busy barfing over it, and it's getting to be a bit much. Like, I get it. You don't feel good. You barf. It happens. It happens to the best of us. Maybe not keep doing it. Maybe get out of the vocal booth. Yeah. And we know there's a window in the studio because in the song Deadline, they wanted to put in some atmospheric windy noises, which is kind of loud and obnoxious in there. It's very windy. It sounds windy in that studio, so you could have barfed outside. But that was another case of them doing too much. Like, you could have just muted that in the background. Just subtle. Yeah, let the guitar kind of sing over, because there's a really cool, clean melody that comes in and really builds up the song. And as far as cool songs go, the song Killing Joke reminds me of Maiden almost in the beginning. It's a chuggy gallop. It's a chuggy gallop. In fact, chuggy gallops are all over this song. But vocally, I don't know, maybe don't incorporate a maniacal laugh throughout the song. It's not very maniacal. Like, it only repeats twice, but twice was already too much. Once was already too much, because it kind of comes in when you're really settling into this chuggy riff. Like, dude, this is nice. Yeah, like, oh, Santa's feeling sinister. It doesn't fit, and it kind of just comes out of nowhere. And again, that's another case of, a young band trying to do too much. It was like, oh, well, this just seems like we're running this chug too long without something else. Like, throw a lead melody on there. Nah, fuck that. I'm going to laugh. No, it doesn't work.
And then, although most of these songs are pretty long, there is a little barn burner that's sandwiched in between Killing Joke and Deadline. What is it, like a minute and a half, maybe?
Minute 50.
There's not a lot going on in there, but the vocals, I like the vocals in there. I think they're fun. It's bleh, bleh, bleh.
That's kind of how he accents the chorus, which it's insult to intelligence.
Yep.
I don't even know if that's what he's saying, because it's just these rhythmic burps.
Bleh.
You know, eventually he kind of like yacked it up like a cat, I'm sure. But like honestly, it kind of is a nice break, because at this point you've been kind of de-beated to death. A thrashy barn burner to break it up was nice. I feel like the song could have been longer though. Like you had it in you to write an 8-minute song and like a 7-minute song right to follow it. Maybe expand the thrashy one a bit.
Yes, because it really is just kind of balls out real quick, and like I think there would have been a place for some more interesting dynamic to go in that. Like he's really moving. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And the drum, while kind of repetitive, because again they kind of go to the D beat well very often, there's a nice amount of aggression to them.
Yes.
Like I like that. It's kind of like punky and a little unhinged. But again, varying it up might help. But towards the end, actually the end of this full length is The Suffering, which I think might be the best track on here.
I agree.
More groove, more doom. Like this is a creepy, ugly song.
Yep.
There's some twisted harmonies in the beginning. Like this one actually kind of sets the atmosphere without fucking opening the window in January in the studio.
Not a good idea.
No, it's cold out. This is kind of the slower groove that this album needed periodically. Like I don't think this should be the last track. I think it should have been somewhere in the middle to sort of break it up. But at the same time, this caps off the album fucking beautifully.
Yep. Brings the heft. It sounds like Obituary, Morbid Angels, Blessed Are the Sick. It has a real heft to it.
Oh, the vocals kind of have a David Vincent sort of flair to them. Like there's some spoken word-ish. I mean, I don't know. Like this one, they just kind of felt like they kind of got in a mood to just like, let's just write a creepy fucking banger. And honestly, I think it's some of the best riffs on the album.
Yep.
And it's a flat-out awesome song. And that would actually kind of carry on until, well, a certain point in their future. And The Suffering, I think, is like an example of them doing just enough. Like they have everything. They're not trying to outdo another part in here. They just want to write a solid song, and they were just honed in. Now, again, there were moments where they kind of do too much or sprinkle in something that seems very unnecessary or does not even complement the song whatsoever. Nothing Changes Anything, which is a confusing title. This song has an interesting bridge. Like it starts off very thrashy. Actually, I like the opening thrash riff on it. It's really fucking catchy.
Yep.
You get to this kind of clean bridge. We get clean guitars.
It reminds me of like Floods or Tens from Pantera.
Very moody.
Yep.
And, you know, it kind of keeps going, and out of nowhere comes this bass harmonic thing that sounds like a broken doorbell.
Yeah, and I think it's off key.
Yeah.
Something didn't sound right, and it definitely does not complement that part whatsoever, because it drowns out the guitar.
And it's unsettling.
Yeah, it's almost like cringy.
Yeah, like it's not unsettling like, ooh, that was creepy and spooky.
Yeah.
It's just like, man, you guys could have buffed that out or just removed it completely. Because
let the guitar do something, but not that.
When it's just the low root notes that they're playing behind it, it's fine. It's actually really good. It was just a case of doing too much. And then on Repressive Acceptance, while I absolutely love that song, it really just kind of latches on to that full tilt fucking death sound in terms of the first 3 albums.
Yes.
There's a section towards the end where it sounds like the bass is out of tune. Like either that or he's just playing the wrong notes behind it. But again, another like mistake that could have been buffed out maybe if they had more time or more takes.
And my problem with it too was that they stuck it in the breakdown, and the breakdown was really good up until that point where the out of tune bass came in.
Yeah.
Maybe not do that.
Yeah, and it's behind like a really cool tapping section. And it's like, man, you kind of want all the melodies to shine there. But overall, though, this was a pretty fun release. We were kind of toying with the idea is this a bad good album or a good bad album?
I think it's a bad good album.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because honestly, when you take away all the production issues and such, and where the potential is really reached,
Yeah.
pretty solid offering. So overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. I like this album, kind of warts and all, because you're going to have to embrace some serious warts on this one. But, you know, when you get down to the songwriting, like, there was so much potential. Especially the Suffering and Repressive Acceptance. I think those showcase what this band was truly capable of, you know, at the time. Like, they had solid melodies, there were good hooks, there was really cool songwriting dynamics. Kind of goes to the well a little bit too much in the D beat, but again, that's kind of not really much of a complaint, honestly, because I love D beats. It's just when you have a 7-minute song that is mostly D beats, it can be kind of exhausting. But overall, like, you know, they were a young band. They definitely were emulating a lot of their, you know, heroes, the bands that influenced them, and they did a pretty decent job here.
I'm gonna give it a 3. It's a good album. It's not great.
Yeah.
But what's there, I think I think what they were trying to do didn't necessarily come through as it should have, because I think it was very rushed. Obviously. Yes. You had less than a month to record and release. I don't know, they were fun songs. But I think somewhere towards like the midpoint of the record, and again, it's only, 7 songs, 8 songs? I remember there being a part in the end of Nothing Changes Anything where it struck up, he and I ended up having a conversation during the song that had nothing to do with the album. We were talking about our Carcass ranking. And that was kind of a problem I had, because the mix was really hard to get past.
Yeah.
And I think it ruined a lot of what could be going on in the album.
The riffs are solid. They're just muffled.
It's great, but it's muffled. It's a good jam, but there's nothing like overly exciting. So, yeah, 3.
Yeah.
It's middle of the road. It's good, but it's not great.
I mean, you know, a lot of the other bands that we brought up that this band probably emulated definitely kind of got better along the way.
Sure.
And possibly if this band had a chance, and, well, they kind of did, but things changed, I think they could have got better.
Yes.
So now we get to the part of what happened. Well, they added guitarist Steve Watson in 91 or 92. I'm really not sure. But they recorded their second demo, simply called the 92 demo. Now, the version I have of their album actually has 3 of the demo tracks on there, and considerable improvements. First
my
off,
God.
the demo mix sounds a lot better than the OG album mix.
Yep.
And songwriting was a lot better.
Yep.
Definitely more of the groovy obituary sound. Not a lot of D beats. In fact, there's a lot of big groovy sections.
Yep.
Drums were looser, guitars were more prominent, vocals sounded better with like less reverb and less laughing.
It sounded like they were relaxing into the sound they were looking for.
Yep.
That they didn't get on the LP.
And honestly, it sounded like they were going to move forward and do another solid death metal album. Well, during this time, they actually changed their name to Consumed, and that happened around 92, 93. I think 93, officially, they became Consumed. And they essentially just re-released that demo under the Consumed name, so you could have a copy of both and be confused, because the same songs were on it. Now, during this time, probably somewhere around 1994, the brothers Mike and Steve Ford decided that Consumed was going to become a punk band. And that didn't sit well with their drummer Lee, because he exited in 94, and then Steve Watson left in 96, and they pretty much just retooled the lineup. And what's weird is Desecrator didn't officially break up. It just continued as a completely different band. And what's really interesting is I actually own an album by Consumed, and I had no idea that these two bands were related. I have the album Pistols at Dawn, which I played him a sample of, and there's no way in hell you would think they were the same band.
Nope, not at all. There's not a single thing in that Consumed album that there would be in the Desecrator album, like, at all. It's almost pop punk.
It is. They signed to Fat Records. Like, it's kind of skate punk, maybe, like, you know, oi punk. I mean, it's definitely poppy. It's not Desecrator.
Not at all.
At all. Every metal element pretty much was removed, and that is how they continued on. Now, Consumed would only last until 2003, and then break up, and then reform in 2015, but only Steve Ford remained as the original member. Mike Ford left. And as for the other members, Lee Hawk, this is his only credit. Well, that and the Consumed demo,
Sure.
which is also the Desecrator demo. Again, confusing. And Steve Watson went on to form Iron Monkey, which is a disgustingly heavy doom sludge. It'll wreck your fucking eardrums. But that became his project, and, well, I mean, we're kind of just left with this interesting death metal album that turned into a punk band. And that was kind of the reason why I wanted to do this one, because holy shit, what a fucking shift.
Yes.
It's just kind of strange.
It's very strange. I was shocked.
And it kind of makes sense for the time. Consume's first EP dropped in 98. By then, we're in that kind of nadir of death metal where just death metal is getting shit on and there's not a lot of quality releases at that point. And yeah, I guess it kind of made sense to become a punk band and possibly sell more records than you did as an underground death metal band. And Desecrator was kind of a second tier band when it came down, maybe not even second tier when it came down to the whole, UK death metal scene.
They were the water boy.
They might have been the water boy, yeah.
They were the water boy of the UK death metal scene.
With some nice, high quality death metal. So yeah, that pretty much concludes the story of Desecrator, unless they choose to reform and write another death metal album and sort of, I don't know, I think they could improve their legacy, because, I mean, this is a decent debut, but it's definitely hampered by a lot of issues. But overall, this was a fun one to go over, and it was just fun doing a retro review again.
Yeah.
Welcome
home.
Yeah. Dig up some weird gold from the fucking 90s. I mean, this is like some loose change you found with a metal detector, honestly, compared to the other gold. But this is still pretty damn good.
Yes.
So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out, there will be a link down below. And, well, shirts are coming. Still waiting to hear back, but I know they're probably in the process of making them.
I can't wait for these shirts.
Yeah, we're excited.
I fucking love these shirts.
But when we get them, rest assured, there will be an announcement video, and we're going to be probably giddy as fuck. And there will also be a giveaway attached to that, because we are on the verge of hitting 10,000 subscribers, which
I can't believe it.
Every 1,000 is weird.
Yep.
Every 100, every one.
Yep.
When I
hand out business cards now, and I tell people, like, well, we're about to hit 10,000 subs, and every time I say that, I go,
wait a minute, that's a real number. I didn't make that up. Yeah, so we're going to do a giveaway with that, and of course that giveaway will probably be a kick-ass shirt. And again, I can't wait to fucking show you guys. But until then, you will have to just be patient and be blessed with all of our thankage, because thank you guys so damn much for getting us here. You guys make this so fucking worthwhile, and we look forward to fucking cranking out more videos for you guys. So with that, we thank you all once again, and we will catch you later.